Hello and welcome to the Bridge of Love. I think we're on episode 5. My name is Erin Cameron and I'll be your host. Thanks for coming back. Took a week off. I called it a bye week. Today we're going to talk about the ways that my daughter and I communicate and really focusing on the gift of being able to communicate telepathically. So I've been pretty excited about this episode. This is one of those things, like most of the lessons and the gifts that I'm pulling out, where I realized I'd been doing that thing all along, or had that skill all along, and it's just something that gets expanded once you're aware of it. So super excited to sort of dive into what that has meant for me and for her, and how it's really affected our experience together here, in a very positive way, obviously. That's why it's a gift. So, what is telepathy? It's communicating without words or physical signals, right? You're not signing or in any other way. It's basically you're not using your 5 physical senses. And I think for that reason, it tends to have a mystery. I know it was for me when I first heard about it, anytime anyone would mention it. And when I first looked it up, I was like, well, okay, so you're sending a thought to someone else and then it gets to their brain like that. I'm never going to be able to do that. That doesn't seem like something that I would ever be able to. I can't read someone's mind. So I just sort of set it aside, and I didn't really think much about it until I started to learn to channel. And we're going to go into that connection more in a little bit. So that was kind of my first initial, recognition of it, was that it was just without words, but more involved with the brain. Like I just had this idea that you were sending thoughts from one brain to another, because of course I hadn't quite learned to come into my heart, and hadn't really explored that connection with channeling or anything yet. So what I came to find out, um, that is that it actually, even if it is a thought that's sent from someone's brain, it's actually received by more like the higher mind, or more, the perception occurs elsewhere. It doesn't, you don't perceive someone else's thought or what they're thinking or feeling telepathically in your brain. It's sort of, we're all connected in this higher place, the quantum field. It connects all of us. There's not really space involved there, so it doesn't matter where you are. And that, once I started feeling that connection by being in channel, the telepathic connection made sense. So essentially, once I realized I was perceiving things in that way, not with my brain, but just sort of perceiving with some higher part of myself. I was like, okay, that's me opening up to how I had already been doing that out of necessity, communicating with my daughter. because she's nonverbal and because she's very limited physically, right? So she, we even when she was younger, people would ask, once they realized she was nonverbal, they would ask if she could sign. Can she sign? A lot of caregivers and professionals would know that, would have that skill to be able to sign. And I'm like, nope, that's not something we do. She can't do that either. So for a long time, I felt very much unable to communicate with her, but at the same time I was. And that's where this gift comes in, is once you realize that's how you're communicating, you see it more clearly. And I definitely had a moment where I realized, wow, this is our connection, and it's been this way for a long time. And I think any mom can probably, when your kid is a baby, right? You're not getting verbal communication. And we just probably are, open to them naturally because of the love that we have for each other and have for them. So that to me is where it starts. There has to be some kind of connection for me and her. Certainly love, easy one, right? Um, once I realized, okay, I've been doing this all along, I started, I'm sort of the one. She knows I know what she's saying. She will vocalize when I come into a room, even if she hasn't been vocal with the people that were there, the rest of her family, my parents or whoever. If I walk in, I very often get the response like, oh, she hasn't really said much for a while. And I started realizing, like, yeah, she knows I know what she needs. And for example, I could, if someone else was watching her, I always had them FaceTime me if she needed something. I was like, let me just talk to her on FaceTime. I can tell what she wants just by looking at her face, connecting with her. And, I just knew. And after a while, once I became conscious of telepathy being a thing and what it really was, where that perception actually came from, I realized, yeah, it wasn't just the FaceTime connection. The FaceTime was a tool to connect with her from my heart, and it was a way to focus on her, and it opened me to any information that she held in that moment. And it was pretty magical once I realized, okay, I'm actually doing this. Like, I've done it forever. And, how can I use this more? So I started playing with it. Like, most of the time I do it without thinking about it. And that's amazing. And why I realize it's such a natural form of communication. One way I played with it is for example, if she woke up in the middle of the night and I have a video monitor for her, but video monitors don't help you get up and go help them. You still have to get up, go in their room and comfort them, and check out, what do they need? And I started, if she woke up, I would tune into her. And sometimes just, visualizing her in her bed or whatever. And I would tell her from my heart, of course, my eyes are closed because I'm trying to sleep. Everything's okay. Just go back to sleep. I'm here. It's not time to get up yet. It's the middle of the night. Go back to sleep. And it worked. And it works a lot of the time. And a similar example to that is if I'm ever staring at the video monitor, she can feel me staring at her. And she will wake up. She'll wake up and literally smile. And I'm not anywhere near her, I'm with this little monitor with a video on it. So those things occur, and they've been occurring for a long time. But I started to realize, yeah, how can I play with this? How can I uh, not necessarily get better at it, but just tune into when I could use it, and when it makes sense. And the rest of the time, I'm just using it without even realizing it. And I also see her caregivers, her nurses, get to know her in that way, and they know what she's saying. And I love this concept because it illustrates how naturally this type of thing occurs, uh, but also how mysterious we've made it because it doesn't involve our five physical senses. Um, you can't hear them speak the words. You can't see them signing to you, and those are always just kind of how we learned. Like that's communication, right? The written word. Um, we become familiar with all of these. Um, even if I were to think think about other limited people, I would end up thinking about someone who's blind, for example, and how they would use Braille. Well, even that is using another of the five senses, right? So when it came to Haddon, I was just in this mystery land for most of her life. Like, wow, well, if she can't sign and she can't talk, and um, what else is there? She does have a speech device, and interestingly, I thought about that. She's always had one since she was about 4 or 5. We started with one, and then she recently got. I think she's had two, and she just recently got a new one, and that's on the way. And it's interesting to me because we always had that, but those were kind of difficult to put in front of her sometimes if you were just kind of sitting around the house or not in a school setting, or if you're in the van and you're driving around and there's movement, or if you're um, out and about in town, like not in your house. So those didn't always get put on. When they did, it was sort of this fun extra thing. But what I find interesting is that for this most recent device, so since COVID, we kind of had this pause in her therapy, what like pause in all of the things. And she actually was getting really close to ordering a device in 2020, and um, late 2019, and then COVID came around it, and that put a wall up. Okay, nobody's ordering anything. And I find it really interesting. It has taken until like she's about to get her new one, and it's a matter of picking the right one, trialing several ones, different methods. Whether they hit a switch or it's, use their eyes or their head. Her most recent, before the current one, she had a little reflecting mouse on her glasses, a little piece of reflective. Find the camera on the computer would find her, the mouse, and she would mouse around. And when she would hold on something, it would say whatever that image represented. Um, this most recent one does follow her eye. It's called eye gaze, and it does follow her eyes, her actual eyeballs. And so when she holds a focus on whatever icon, she wants to open up and say that thing, or open up to the next page, she just holds on it, and it either speaks for her or goes to the next, um, that category. Super cool devices, but it's a matter of finding which one works for them. And then you've got to bill insurance, you've got to get an order, you've got to get everything coordinated, and then you have to order it, and it takes months, and it's a slow process. But for some reason, I couldn't figure out why in the last 3 years it's taking, we just really couldn't. We did move after COVID or during COVID, and so that was part of it. Life happens and you reset everything, but it just I couldn't believe how long. Wow, it's this last device has taken forever, and then I realized how far we've come, me and her, in how we communicate, and that just all kind of landed for me really nicely. Like, I was like, okay, this whole 3 years I was actually coming into this skill a lot more, and I can see how that was, timing wise, probably helpful that she wasn't always on a device, that I pulled out of the last 3 years. That kind of makes sense now why, uh, we wouldn't have just had that work out so easily. There really was this side thing happening where we were learning how to communicate, on this higher level in bigger ways, and it kind of was part of why I, was not forced to open up to it, but just had a more and more of an opportunity because I wasn't focused on having the device on her at home, because we don't have it yet. Um, and in the meantime, I was like, wow, I've developed this, um, other way that we've always had, and it's it's been such a gift. And I can tell, that she's having a more interactive experience with me because I've learned how to tune in. Where is it that, she's actually tuning in? Um, Sometimes it's not your words or your intention. And that's the beautiful thing about telepathy, is that it doesn't leave anything out. It's a really pure, form of communication. And, so, yeah, it doesn't fail, is what I'm trying to get at. It In that way, you can't get it wrong. The things that we truly, want to say, or that we are holding in our field, um, not in our mind, not in the what is it, like the little, um, bunny rabbit on the wheel or something. It's not in the busy mind. That's not where we hold what we really, want to communicate a lot of times. And but in our field, in that place that we're all connected, it's a very pure, uh, sort of fail-safe kind of way of getting to the point. And I think it in this way, telepathy is actually, an advanced form of communication, and, like a higher form, essentially, um, because it really just it gets to all the stuff that actually matters. Um, because your intention and what you're really trying to get across is where all the truth lies, right? In whatever it is that you're saying or trying to get across. And I think the more I've used it and the more I've become conscious of it, I realize how limiting our language is, right? Our words. Like, even trying to put all this stuff into words. You spend hours like, okay, how should I say it? What do I say first? What do I, you know, um, well, maybe I explain it this way, or maybe I add this story, or with telepathy, everything just comes across. And have you ever, I mean, so in that way, like I do think that the English language or any language is limited. It's limited to our words. Um, and as beautiful as words are, sometimes have you ever thought about like something being beyond words, like a way that you feel like, I say it that I can hardly put into words, how amazing in that we're saying that telepathy and this way of communicating is a higher form, is more advanced than jabbering away. And, just how you kind of hit with texts or the English language, all those examples of just sometimes words are not going to get to the point, as well as just, to the truth of what it is you're trying to get across, which is just there. It's there all the time. We all have these things that we hold in our field. And sometimes it has to do with a very specific desire, like I'm really thirsty or dehydrated, or but sometimes they're bigger truths or bigger desires or bigger things, concepts that you want to get across. And all that is possible through telepathy. And it illustrates to me how simple things are, how simple the big important things are. I think about like when my daughter's sitting outside and I can see look on her face and I can see, if she's sitting in the backyard and she's just enjoying the trees and the birds and the breeze and the sunshine, there's a simplicity to that. And that, so many of our really important experiences, the ones that are the most high vibrational, we have, I can see her whole energy is just so perfect and tuned in and happy. And she doesn't tell me any of that, right? She's not like, Mom, oh my God, I love the sound of the birds. And oh my gosh, the sun feels so good on my skin. She doesn't say any of that, right? But I know because it's there in her field. She's holding all of that information. So it's, to the smile that I see on her face, or even just a really calm face that doesn't have an exuberant smile or anything super expressive. I can actually feel from her whether she's good or not. And when you have a nonverbal child, or, and that's what I meant by any mom can look back to when their baby, when they had a small baby who was not talking to them. A lot of times it's about how you're like, okay, I feel like my baby's okay. And even doctors will be like, is this, I'm going to pose. And I think it's just our natural intuitive sense and connection with them through love, through our heart. We're not, if we don't need to overthink it. It's just all there and it's just known. So that's some of my experience with telepathy. And, again, that value is just that because she's nonverbal, and having that physical limitation that she does, which is a lot. This kind of came out of the blue for me, like, oh yeah, I've totally been using that, and I can use that more now. I can really, really get into that, and so, and I did as her speech device, crept into reality, like at the snail's pace. So even stuff like that, I can look at it and go, that's okay, because she got more certain in the way that I communicate with her. And it's really, that part is clear to me, that we're both having a clearer, more fulfilling experience in how we communicate and how we experience every day. And so, what makes telepathy valuable, other than what I just said? um, I think the value of it is that it is energetic. You know, love's an energy, um, sort of, that thing that you're tuning into is energy field, and that um, it's not manipulative. It's not from the brain. There's a pure intention. Um, and that it is happening through the energy of love. That's what actually, that energy of love is what connects all of us. Um, and so, yeah, I think the value lies in just the fact that there's no crisscross in like what one person thinks and another person perceives. Um, when it works, and it's it's one of those like 100%. Um, yeah, that I think that, and to me, my daughter is just such a, all this makes sense, the fact that we would communicate this way, because she's such a pure form of energy. Uh, she's expressing in human form as the purest form of energy, as love. And we all are, but she's just really good at it. She doesn't, there's nothing else in the way, right? Um, her brain is not in the way, and that creates, and her physical is not in the way, and that just creates this, um, what I see as a really, really beautiful, beautifully pure form of expressing, um, expressing in human form. So if it's love that we're connecting through, and she's always super tuned into that, she all are. Um, to me, that's why it's like, oh yeah, no wonder we communicate this way. Like it's the thing that's always there, and really, it's just up to me to tune in. Um, she's there. She's there a lot of the time, and she's very strongly there. And I think it's really powerful to recognize this form of communication and its value. You know, if you have a nonverbal kid, but really, for anybody, I think it's just fun to know that this is a thing, and that it's not this unreachable, uh skill. Like we're all probably doing it way more than we think. um I like the example, like I think about pets. You always know how your pet feels about you. You know what they need, and they're not telling you. um I think about, we never had one, but I realized as I was thinking about this episode, I was like, oh yeah, that's what seizure dogs are using. They're using telepathy, that sense. To train a dog, like to be to detect seizures. But I always thought about that so much in my brain. Like I always thought, oh, that's so cool. Like that they can do that. That must be a really special dog, a really smart dog. And I realize now, like, as long as the dog, I mean, of course, they do have to be a certain level of smart. um, but as long as they're tuned into the kid or the even adult, if they have developed a relationship with them and they know what the person's baseline is, for example, they're going to learn that over time and then they'll learn when that's off. Um, and I just was like, oh, well, yeah, you can train a dog to be a seizure dog, but that doesn't, kind of any dog could be a seizure dog, right? Once I realized, like, oh, yeah, it's telepathy that they're using. That's so I just think it's so universal and just uh, to me, I think it's just really cool to tune into it because I do think it's as you become more conscious, as you know, I think it's a more natural um, way of communicating for anyone. So um, I also find it interesting. One other little thing about my experience with Haddon, I've always thought that, you know, when I compare her to like a typical kid, that, and I've had other people observe this too, that she's again not manipulative. And now I realize why it communicates. It's not just because she's a sweet kid, it's literally that she's not using her brain. And telepathy is not, by nature, not manipulative. And I think because the brain isn't involved, and um, that makes sense to me at least. And for her, it kind of made me understand why she is like that. Of course, it is somewhat because she's precious and uh, very pure herself, but I think it has a lot to do with how she's communicated forever. Um, so, and if you know, if you're thinking about do this, that really is it, is getting the brain out of the way. It's, you know, if you're trying to, say, receive from someone, you know, trying to just come into the heart, let the brain step aside. Um, it's really truly how we're designed. We have a brain and we have a heart center, and they each have their purpose, right? Um, and to kind of be aware that they do have different purposes, but that they are both communication centers. And I think that's just so cool and practice. If you didn't have a kid that you were doing this for 15 years without noticing, you might need to practice a little. Um, but yeah, just not judging if you are in your head. It's very similar, I would think, to any advice for meditating. You know, just observing the thoughts, kind of in a detached way, and receiving from here, from your heart center. Um, and it's really just receiving kind of from a higher place, like uh, the way I experience is it's something just kind of drops in. It's like it doesn't come in, kind of just comes in a thought form or a, you know, but for me, it's not something I actively like thought really hard about tuning into or thought about. It just comes to you. Um, but in saying all that, I do think that we all have this ability. And again, it really just, I think, is a beautiful example of how um, spirituality is so simple and that it's applicable. It's who we are. Um, you know, if you want to open up to this sort of thing, all you have to do is ask for it. Um, in asking, it kind of up, the more will come into you. It's to me, it's about staying open and just focusing on love. It's just that really high vibration, right? Focus on your heart, not in the thoughts of what's. And believe me, I have a lot of thoughts. I think that's why I love all of this so much, is it gives me somewhere else to play that's not my brain, because I'm one of those people that all have, you know, 30 thoughts all at the same time. And maybe some of that is from the field and it gets jumbled in there, but I do have a very active, I'm very left-brained, science-y, the whole thing. That just turn off. Um, that's just something that I have. And I think that's why this stuff just is fun for me, because it's like another playground that gives my brain a break. So, you know, um, focusing on your heart, um, knowing that love is the truth of all of us. And if it doesn't seem that way, if you're not in that place of love, there's just something else, a story that you're making up in your brain, that are sort of causing interfering frequencies. So it really is about being in that a little higher frequency of love. Um, and if there is a story about, like, well, I can't feel that we're love. What, like, can't feel the love right now. Um, you just kind of let that into the truth of you. You really do eventually. And if you're open to it, you can be in that place. And I think be much more connected to yourself and anyone else. And I think that's where my daughter has that special talent of, you know, not being in her own way. She sees the truth of all things, and um, it's really beautiful. And I think for that reason, she probably feels really connected a lot of times, to people that are in her vibration, right? Um, and it wouldn't necessarily have to do with anything that they're saying. So, all of this too kind of leads into how I know Haddon as her true self, as her soul. And it helps me not to let old stories sort of cloud my experience of that. Um, and she does come through more clearly to me now. I can, like I said before, I can tell that her experience of me is more fulfilling for her, and that she's able to connect with me more often, at least, so more of her gets to experience our relationship, if that makes sense, because more of her is in higher vibrations, and the more of me that's there with her, the more fun we can have. um, it's a resonance, so if I can get into the higher vibration the more high the vibration is that I can get into, the closer I am to where she's at, and where this type of communication occurs. Um, the more we can experience together, and the more she's able to share with me how she feels about whatever we're experiencing. Um, and if I'm really tuned in, I mean, I think she feels more visible in those moments with me. And what I imagine, is what if the world, more of the world were like this, or interact at this level? How much more connected and seen people would feel. Some people might not want to be totally seen. But for the most part, I think that would be really, really cool. Um, disabled people, nonverbal people, but also just everyone. I think that that's part of why I share all of this stuff, is that it's so universally applicable. and there's value in it, no matter who you are, in connecting us to uh, the truth that we hold, the truth, connecting us in higher vibrations, right? You can't really uh, communicate telepathically when you're clouded in thought and analysis and who's right and who's wrong, and you really have to tune in, I think, to get the full effect. So that, I think, is kind of amazing to think about, just how my experience with her, I know she feels more visible to me. I can see it in her. And then when I think about how that might ripple out uh, to really a lot of other populations of people that don't feel seen. So I want to go into, if you haven't kind of caught on a little already, how telepathy is related to channeling. I do think it's all the same thing, really. um, I think it's why the two skills opened up for me at the same time, around the same time. Um, you're simply tuning in to business, and that's where this is occurring. That's where the communication is occurring. That's where channeling occurs. Um, they're in that level of consciousness that we are connected. So that level of awareness that we are connected. Um, when you sense that connection, then you can tune into whoever you want. And that's pretty easy when you're in their physical presence and when you're connected to them, I find, or just energetically. So that's, as the closer I am to someone, and often the better you know them, right? But sometimes even if you don't, if you're just in someone's vicinity, I find that, um, a way to just tune into that awareness that we're actually not as separate as we think. We're all connected. And to me, telepathy and channeling are both really good examples of just how connected we are. And that this is such a natural form of communication. It's effortless. So effortless that we don't know we're doing it a lot of the time. And I find that to be the case with a lot of spiritual things that I'm tuning into now. It's like, well, this was always the truth. It's just I'm more aware of it now. So, I hope all of that made sense. And what I'd like to do now, I'm going to see what time we're at. Okay. Haddon has been nudging me to, to get out of her way. And I've been feeling like it would be fun to bring her in and channel. So we're going to give that a shot today. And just see, what she has to contribute here. And yeah, I just want to give it a shot. And like I said, that nudge from her, like, okay, Mom, this is what we came here for. Like, anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny because I got it in this just, it was like a little nudge, like, okay, get out of your own way. I think channeling is like that a lot, where or a lot of what is required is getting out of your own way. But that the nudge from her came in this form of like my way. So with that, I am gonna just tune into her. And isn't this the perfect episode to do that because I've been blabbing for 45 minutes about tuning into her. And if you don't, if you're not familiar with channeling and or channel messages, you don't have to close your eyes, but you can. It can kind of tune you in with me, and you might get a little more out of it energetically. You're not distracted by my physical presence, and you can hear the words. But I find that sometimes I'll have little thoughts or downloads that are kind of cool realizations, like during someone else's channel. So if you'd like to do that, and what I do is I'll just tune in, close my eyes, and we'll see how long that takes. And see what Haddon has to say today. All right. Okay. So I just drop into the heart. Take it. And we'll begin. I am so happy today. This is a space we share. The heart space. You can go there now. Come there with me. Come there with us. And feel. Feel the love that exists there. And maybe that's a love that you hold there for someone else. Someone in your family. A friend. Someone you care for. But underneath that love for them, can you feel the love that you have inside of you? It may feel like a warmth in your heart space. Feel for that love. And know, without that being there, without it being the truth of you, without it being inside of you, you would not be able to feel that for someone else or give that to someone else. This is the bridge between you and anyone you love. Here in the physical with you, or in the non-physical. We are all here playing together. All here in this life experience. All here to witness the beauty in ourselves and in each other. Bonds that we share. They are all precious. It is all precious. To be appreciated, to be valued. And when you're in this vibration of love, those moments expand. The value expands. The appreciation expands. And we all have this ability to tune into love, to feel it inside of us, to be it. Maybe you're a bridge for someone else. Just know that you're here for an important reason. Even if that reason isn't clear in this moment. Knowing it, knowing that you are valuable, that you are love, that will eventually open you to that bigger reason that you're here. Which at its core is to give and feel love. from this vibration. Allow it in. Allow the love that is here for you. And if that comes from a loved one, perfect. But when you feel it for them, from them, feel also within yourself in that moment, and you will feel that love is there. It is yours. You are that love. It is simply being reflected back. Your truth being reflected back to you and everyone that you meet, interact with. I hope you feel the love and see the beauty in yourself and in all things. Thank you for joining us in this space today. All right. I hope that you were able to feel that and hear that. Hopefully I was loud enough. That was awesome. I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like if you'd like more, you can go to my website. It's erincameron.org. And you can find the community there. I actually with written channeled messages that I started kind of far back, as I did with the episodes, where kind of to catch you up to messages that I found helpful for me, and some people enjoy reading, and I know I'm super auditory, but sometimes the written messages are fun as well. So those are free. They're on my blog, on my website, erincameron.org, and I'll be putting those up as I feel called. And and if you'd like to experience a private session, you can sign up for those on my website as well, and experience more personal channeled guidance. Anyone can benefit from this. The energy and the messages. And if you have any questions, just email me. You can also do there is an option for a discovery call on the private sessions portion of my website where, for free, you can just do it. We'll do a 30-minute, have a conversation and see how you feel about it and how it might work for you. So thanks again for tuning in today. Or whenever you tuned in. And we're sending you so much love. I was definitely feeling it during that message, so hopefully you could feel that as well. Until next time, take care.